Hey, Rodrigo.
Hi,
Hello, Nick, Juliana.
how
How
are
are
you?
you?
I am good. I am here in Ecuador saying hello and happy to be able to share some of my vision today.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to
Great.
you more in depth. Where are you at right now? Are you in Puerto Cayo?
I am in the Manabí province. I'm the city of Manta at the moment,
Okay.
um, in the southern coast of Ecuador.
Right. Yeah. So Manta is like the largest city closest to where your restaurant and project are.
Yes,
Right. Okay.
yes.
And your kid, I imagine your kids go to school in Manta and things like that. So,
In this year, yes, but for 10 years they've been going to the very small rural schools around Puerto Cayo.
okay.
But this year they're in Manta. Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So I first met you, I was trying to think. Probably like 10 years ago, probably something like that. Like I remember Bocavaldivia was probably just started or something like that. Does that sound about right?
Yes, yes. I met you at a culinary event in Quito,
Yeah.
um, a little more than 10 years ago. Yes.
Okay. In Bocavaldivia, like just started or like it hadn't been going long, right?
Yes, it hadn't been going so long,
Okay.
actually.
And yeah, it was at a conference in Quito and like I met you and then like, we hung out a bit and I thought like, wow, this is really incredible what you were doing. And even though it was like so very early on 10 years ago, like I was still kind of blown away by the things you were talking about. And I tried so many times to come visit. Like I looked for flights, I was like tried to get different assignments, and for whatever reason it just like never worked out. Like I was never in Ecuador that much, at least with enough time to come over, and it just never worked out. And earlier this year I was finally able to come, and it was like I was so looking forward to it, and like it was everything I expected it to be, and more. And before we get into that experience and like what I did when I was there, let's talk a little about what Boca Valdivia is. I think it's better coming from you. So, where is it and what is it?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for recognizing my work, and thank you for visiting. So it was great to
Yeah.
see you in from close. Boca Valdivia is a, I don't know if, and we can debate that in a deeper way along this conversation, but I don't know if it's a restaurant or if I want it to be a restaurant. I think Boca Valdivia is a source of wisdom, is a source of connection, is a container that is able to connect people with nature. Is a place where there's a harmony between all living beings. And the center of this ecosystem is an ecosystem, actually. I want to call it like that. It's an ecosystem that I design over time, where the kitchen is the heart, but it's also surrounded by life, by biodiversity, by values, by people that represent the past, and also, of course, through the art we do, we do the contemporary version of the culinary arts, inspired of the ancestral wisdom, but always looking towards the future. It's an ecosystem that is friendly, that is where the pantry is actually outdoor. There's a lot of foraging, there's a lot of plants, and we get to learn from the cycle of life of all these multiple species, and then apply this wisdom around the embers, because mostly what we prepare is made with the embers in this ancestral kitchen that um, is kind of the opposite of my learning in the professional world, where I was able to be more in touch with technology, and Michelin stars and beautiful kitchens, which I obviously value. But this is kind of the back to basics version of gastronomy that I decided to apply.
So just to pull back for a second, so the project, we'll just call it that for now. It's not exactly a restaurant. I totally agree with you, and that was one of my questions later on, and we can maybe get to that. But it's near Puerto Cayo, which is what, like 2 hours south of Manta, an hour south of Manta.
It's 45 minutes
Okay, yeah,
from
okay,
Manta, from
all
Manta
right,
Airport.
yeah. So and it's right on the coast, and it's there's a hotel residential development that's part of Bocavaldivia too, right? Las Tenusas. That's like right on the coast. That's like the beachfront area, and then the entire project though spans like how many hectares?
My wife and I, we founded a 50-hectare ancient farm that was has ocean front, but also it has the more of the inside part of the land. So it's 25 hectares on the beach side, and then 25 hectares on the other side of the road, all together face to face. It was an ancient pepper farm,
Okay,
and then we started to transform a house into a hotel, and then into a project that started to build more and more towards a larger accommodation, some real estate attached to the hospitality business, and then agriculture and restoration of the ecosystem. So the whole project is a 50-hectare piece of land.
okay.
Yeah.
So and that's the core of it that you started 10 years ago. Okay,
Yes.
and okay, so at the time, I guess when I met you, you were cooking there already, and but the land was very different. I imagine, like you didn't have it for that long. It was still probably degraded in a lot of areas. So you've had to do a lot to kind of get it to the state where it is now. Is that
That's
correct? Okay.
correct. Yes, it was you could tell that in the soil. The soil was dry, was degraded, was empty, and then there was no vegetation, no wildlife, no kitchen there, and no hotel, no customers, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So we developed the whole concept of this, including the training of the people who were actually the guys that work in the construction. So the guys that work in building this infrastructure on the beachfront. Those are the guys that we ended up training for service, for cooking, and it was amazing to be able to do it that way. Not the easy way necessarily, but
Yeah.
a very important experience of my life has been to share all that I've learned, and also learn from these guys. Right, they're locals, they're fishermen, and so it has been an amazing journey. But the land itself was very degraded, and today is a different story. There's a full ecosystem that is has over a decade of restoration, and there's also the plantation and implementation of this biodiverse edible forest way of life that then expanded to a conservation project that has more hectares, and we're looking forward to bring it to a larger scale.
Right. Okay. So like, what was your experience as a chef before that? Like before you take in this very big visionary project, like did you work elsewhere in Ecuador? I know you went to culinary school in France, right? And like you staged with Michel Bras. Is that right?
Yeah. I did first. I did a bachelor in Chile for hotel and restaurant management for 4 years, but already knowing that I was going to study culinary arts after. It was a planned journey, And then I went to Lyon, and I went to the Paul Bocuse Institute in Lyon. So I lived in France for another 4 years, and I did a second bachelor of culinary arts and management. And I did some nice internships in Alain Chapelle, in the Martinez Hotel in La Palme d'Or, then in Michel Bras. I also went to Pierre Gagnère in London, and had a nice view of these high-end Michelin stars. But of course, very very inspired in Michel Bras. He kind of became my good friend, and we were aligned in the values, in how we see nature, how we appreciate biodiversity. And then I came to Ecuador. I never worked in Ecuador for anyone. I came directly and opened a small hotel and restaurant right beside an erupting volcano at the time, in a little town called Baños de Agua Santa. And the volcano, the Tungurahua volcano, was very, very active during my 3-year period where I opened that very, very small hotel. It had 6 rooms, and we served like 40 people for lunch and dinner. But it was a really nice come back to my culture, to Ecuador, especially living this experience of being beside an erupting volcano, where I saw things that really blew my mind and made me really, really connect with my country again. And after that, I came directly to the coast, to Puerto Cayo, and started this other journey of a larger scale, of more land, and all that we have been speaking about.
So, like 10 years ago, there was, I mean, there wasn't really that even much interest in gastronomy in Ecuador. I mean, in Ecuadorian ingredients, in kind of like Ecuador wasn't really like on the map like Peru was. There wasn't really so much attention. Even like the high-end cooks in Quito, they weren't really cooking Ecuadorian food. It was still kind of very international. There wasn't so much pride of of what you guys had, and I think you were the first one that I saw that was really talking about it. But like, how do you do that? How did you get people to pay attention from all the way on the coast, where like you're basically the middle of nowhere, like where you are at? Like it was, like it's impressive that you were able to, I don't know, like just get this idea off the ground, because I think it is a really, really big, bold idea, and you started, I think, pretty early on, way ahead of anyone else, talking about things like this. Like how, what was it, a challenge? Right? I mean, I'm sure it was.
Yes, of course, of course. It's like opening a trail, right? Like you grab your machete and you have to open the first trail, which is really hard. You get bitten by wasp, you get blisters in your hands, and but also you are opening a path. And I don't say I never said I'm the first one doing this, but what I think I brought in is the vision on how we actually have been important in the gastronomic world for thousands of years. Maybe not in the contemporary world of gastronomy, Michelin stars or the list. I agree, but then the the ancient cultures, the pre-Hispanic cultures that inhabited Ecuador, especially the coast of Ecuador, such as the Valdivia culture. So if you investigate about the Valdivia culture, you will find out that it's called the mother culture of the Americas. So 7,000 years ago, these guys were pioneers in the domestication of plant species, meaning agriculture, in pottery and navigation. And the society is a matriarchal society that lasted for about 2,000 years, which is the same than our era, right? But we kind of like skip that part of the past, and then we focus in the gastronomy that was more influenced by the colonization, and then and then the Republican type of cuisine, right, which is a bit of the mix between the ancient cuisine, the colonization techniques that came in, but then also the Republican. But what happened before? And that was my first question a long time ago, over a decade. What was happening before? And when I start asking myself that question, I start becoming a sort of like an archaeologist and start digging into the ground, literally, and also finding all sort of special elements and tools, and then investigating and reading and talking to more professionals from all over the world about the importance of the pre-Hispanic cultures of Ecuador and how advanced they were. And then I found amazing information about the origin products of Ecuador. The first domestication of products that then, with globalization, with navigation, they became part of Europe and different places, and now they're actually the base of the most prestigious cuisines in the world, right? But then the products came from here, from around us, and since we were pioneering the navigation in the American continent, we navigated all the way to the north and all the way to the south, and brought, of course, expanded the biodiversity that was part of Ecuador. Considering that, as you know, Ecuador belongs to the equator, and the more biodiversity you find on the planet is actually the closer to the equator, and the less biodiversity is as you approach the pole. So Ecuador, by gravity, is one of the most biodiverse countries in the world per square meter, and that happened. Helped expanding the biodiversity also around the world, and also we brought in different species that then our culture adopted, like the bananas, the plantain, or the citrus. Those are not original species from here, yet they became very popular for gastronomy in Ecuador. So, we have to look deeper. We have to see our ancestral past to really understand what's going on in the present and how we can bring this into the future, right? And that's what I've been doing over the past 10 years.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I was speaking of contemporary culinary culture. No one, obviously, everywhere else in Ecuador, people are still cooking, native things and making amazing food. But contemporary culture was very much like they were making like sushi and Peruvian food, and like there wasn't really this kind of inward look, and yeah, and so when I was there, so let's move to that. So when I came to Bocavaldivia earlier in the year, like as you said, is it really a restaurant? I don't know. Like I mean, you do serve food, and and people sit down and eat, and drink wine. So there is a restaurant there, but is that the most important part of what you do? I think it's just a small part of it, really. I don't know. I mean, it's a big. We can debate that all day, but it's bigger than a restaurant. It's not just a restaurant. Like the only place I can like think of that kind of equates to that kind of restaurant experience is maybe Mill in the Peruvian Andes. What like Rogelio and the Mato team are doing there. But so when I came, immediately we went to the beach. We went fishing with nets. It required everyone that was there, including staff, to grab hold of these nets and to really immerse themselves in the ocean and feel the waves, the strength of the waves, and get wet, and everyone worked together to catch fish, and we did. We caught it. It was pretty rough, like the waves. It's probably always a little choppy there, I guess, but yeah, and it was fun, and we caught fish that way, and you later serve them, and then after fishing, we went hiking through the coastal dry forest, and there was like a guide went with us and talked about the different plants, and we ate termites off a stick, live termites, and that was nice, and and then we got to the area where the restaurant was, and we got to see what was growing in their gardens, all of the different fruits and herbs and tropical tubers. And but there was this very educational aspect to this very education through experience, and not just like blasting you with information before serving a dish. Like I think when you actually served the food, it was like normal. Like you brought a dish and said what it was, but you kind of already lived through what the ingredients were and before sitting down to eat them. So it wasn't. It was like it came off in this very natural way of serving and eating, rather than just like sitting down at a fine dining restaurant and you sit there for 10 minutes as they explain over and what's going on and who the farmer was and blah blah blah, and then by the time you actually eat, it's like you're bored. Like sometimes that happens, but that didn't happen here. It was like very natural, and just it felt good, and I felt like I I knew a lot before I actually sat down and ate. So why is this kind of educational experience important to a meal at Bocavaldivia?
I think art in general, and that includes culinary art, should have uh, the mission of transmit information that society needs to learn. The aesthetic part of art is nice. I recognize it, but if it doesn't have a purpose behind, for me, it remains only aesthetic, and that is vain for me. While when you share, when you transmit knowledge, experiences, wisdom through what you do, you're adding a lot of value. You're also inspiring future guardians of the planet, either to support your mission or to create their own. You kind of shake the soul of people. And of course, if the Bocavaldivia, as you experience, is a 6 hour ride. So you cultivate an special ingredient for good food, which is hunger. Also, the fact that there's a physical aspect of it, and then there's the trail. These are important layers that are curated, especially for people to leave things behind. To start questioning, even like where am I going? Like I thought I came to a restaurant. I've heard so many comments while I'm guiding this tour, and I'm laughing, and I'm like, and then people plant a tree, but then you've been kind of doing physical things and connecting with nature for around 3 hours, 4 hours. So of course, the first thing you receive is this ethnobotany, this fresh drink, and biodegradable, and then of course your body is ready to receive that, and that's exactly what I wanted to do, because food for me is very ceremonial. I always wanted Bocavaldivia to be sort of like the house of the shaman, right? Not calling me the shaman, right? But I'm an apprentice of a shaman, but I mean the fact that you go is not the place where you raise your hand and you ask for something. Like, it's a place where you listen, where you actually you will get a menu that is unique for that day, that is provided by the chef and the team, and there's basically no way to change it or question it, right? So it kind of seems a little bit dictatorial, but in a way, if I wouldn't do that, how would I use 150 species of plants? Like, if I put to choose, the guests might go for the traditional, and then the biodiversity will remain unknown for most of the people. So that's how we try to share the information, experience, and putting your hands onto it. Grabbing a fish with your hands from the ocean is actually not too many people have experienced that in their life, especially as part of a culinary experience. So all this is actually very thoughtful for people to really feel. And eating is such an intimate act. You put something in your mouth, you put it inside your body. Why are we taking it for granted? You know what I mean? So that I always wanted to sort of like break the glass on those old thoughts on restaurants wanting to be like other restaurants, and then you just see it all over the place. And I was always a rebel on that. I'm like, I don't want to have a restaurant that is similar to anything. I want to actually change the vision of the person who is coming here. So hopefully most of the people get the message, appreciate the humbleness of the experience, the humbleness of the ingredients, and the effort we do, not only obtaining the food from it, from the origin, but also carving the dishes and carving the straws and all this. That is an extra work that usually in kitchens is not part of the journey. So might not be perfect, but is different, is authentic, and I think is an opportunity to use my creativity to transform the world positively somehow.
So, Rodrigo, I have like 20 different questions, but and I mean, in what you do, you're trying to answer at least 100 questions, and you're tying together at least 20 projects and all these, right? So, I wrote an article about Bocavaldivia and you in 2018, I think it was, for Avianca magazine. So I think Bocavaldivia and the restaurant was the focus of the whole project, but you have developed so many branches of it. Obviously, everything is connected, but you're an ambassador for the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. You have been in shows. You have this educational, mission. You collaborate with other organizations that are interested in similar missions and with similar values. I mean, right? 100 things. And you also, I think you have developed with your team, and that's one of my questions, who is your team? Bioeconomy, edible forest, shelter. I mean, I was looking at the graphic you have, putting together all these concepts, and I was curious about how did you put together all this ecosystem in this graphic that reflects the ecosystem you just described it for us. Second, what is a work day? How does it look when you are there, so that we have a better idea of all what you do, although you have been talking about it. Third, you kind of already mentioned the message people should get when it goes there, but I will ask you to repeat that message. If nothing else, what people should get from these different experiences, because there is so much, right? So, yeah. And
All
thank
right. All right. Thank you for your curiosity. And I love to talk about my team because one time someone asked me, what's the most amazing dish that you have created in your career? And automatically and spontaneously, my answer was Walter, which is my sous chef,
Oh.
that he had worked with me for over 10 years. And it was funny because how I met him, he was fixing the roof, right? So I'm like, buenos dias. So he was fixing the roof, and then he saw me cooking, so he started just looking, and then one time he said to me that maybe he wanted to do half of the maintenance work and then maybe half in the kitchen. So he started approaching the kitchen, and And one day, one of the cooks like went partying or something, one of the young guys, and didn't arrive to work. This was before we arrived to Tanusas. This was in Baños, in the volcanic project. So then I'm like, Walter, you're in today, brother, because there's the other cook didn't show up. So here's my vest. So he had my vest with my name. So he was a second Rodrigo Pacheco, a huge vest, and he was so scared. And then I always wanted this, even in my first project, the kitchen was outdoor. Like I wanted people to connect and see. I don't like to be inside and just see the cooks licking their fingers. I think the best way, not being angry with the kids in the kitchen, the best way to supervise their work is their own customers, the invites that are looking to them. So they feel empowered, so they are not licking their fingers and they're not cleaning their hands in the apron, right? So I always wanted that. So for Walter was obviously is the most adrenaline adventure he has ever been, and since then he started coming back to the kitchen and he stopped doing the maintenance, and well, he's cooked with me in Africa, and like we have had an amazing journey. But he also brought a lot of wisdom because he works the land. He's an indigenous guy, right? So he also showed me many important things and lessons, and so and after him there was these other kids that started when we started planting the forest. I hired some of them just to help in the agriculture part, and then I said, okay, you bring the harvest to the kitchen, and then I said, please wash the harvest when you arrive to the kitchen, and then we were busy, so wash the harvest and then start peeling, and that's how they started getting in. At the beginning, they didn't say anything back to me. I would say, David, please, da, da, da. He would stay quiet. I'm like, are you going to answer me sometime? It took them 5 years to answer back something to me. So it has been just such I don't know how to describe it. It's a unique journey to be able to transform these kids and, see how they gain self-confidence and technique, but they're so humble and so nice. I love to work with those guys. So my whole team, basically in Bocavaldivia, they haven't finished primary school. They finished, I think, second grade of primary school, and then they didn't continue. So it's nice, because sometimes people say, oh, I study here, I study there, I did this, and then they're pretty bad in the kitchen. They don't want to work. They think they know everything. Well, these guys, they saw that opportunity, the opportunity that they have in their lives to be part of such an important mission. So they embrace it and they don't let go. So that's how I would describe my team. Then I do a lot of things because I decided to move to the countryside, so I don't spend a lot of time in the car, and that gives me a lot of extra time to do extra things. And also I've been exploring nature from very early stage of my life, so that's I think that there's two sources of wisdom, because let's talk about knowledge and wisdom really quickly. Knowledge comes in a box today, right? And you tap how to do a sauce in the internet and you'll get the information right away. While wisdom you only obtain from two sources. One is nature, and second, the indigenous people of the world. So I've been in contact with both for plenty of time, and that's how I obtain the energy and the wisdom to do more things that are connected, as you said. But now we have a pretty big thing going on in terms of conservation and all that. So we'll get into that later. But my everyday is exploring the ecosystems. I'm always riding something, like either my surfboard or a motorbike or a horse or whatever. I like to be riding something, and then that way I connect with the different ecosystems that are around me. And then I like to cultivate. I enjoy harvesting. I follow the cycle of life of the planet, of the plants, of the animals, and then that's how I define my role as a human and as a chef in today's world. So that's how I manage my everyday. And then your third question was
The message people
related to
should,
the message.
yeah,
So
yeah,
people are so disconnected from nature that it makes me sad.
yeah,
Uh, the ego and all these, especially from people coming from the cities, and I've been in that restaurant. Who cares?
mhm,
I I became this guy, and I even isolated myself from some of the Ecuadorian kind of like gastronomy scene, because and I think there's a lot of amazing cooks and all that, but every time I was invited to an event or something, there's this talking bad of someone, people talking bad about this one. So I really really like I left all the groups, all the things, and I said I focus on my mission. I, Now I'm getting back and getting more friends again, but I've been as isolated for a decade. This allowed me to first to understand what is the message that I getting, to digest it, and then to transform it in a message that it will be useful for the wellness of the present and the future generations, for children. And that's it. How we need to embrace the biodiversity. How forests are so important, not only for a kitchen but for the planet, right? I encourage entrepreneurs to to establish the triple bottom line. Economy, people, planet, but also at culture. I encourage leaders to take bold decisions for environmental transformation. Uh, so my passion for cooking became smaller than my purpose. My purpose became bigger, and I use my passion, and I use I hope my talent for culinary arts to nurture this bigger thing, this bigger mission that I have in life, which is to expand, to reconnect, to strengthen, to protect ecosystems and cultures. So that is the message I'm spreading through. And if you see the press kit and if you tap my name in the internet, that's exactly what you will get. It's nature connection, it's biodiversity, is expanding this conservation project, respecting nature, um, and creating a type of gastronomy that is harmless, that is lives in harmony with the surrounding universe, that is using the elements, some of them very, very humble, to to be able to transmit and to convey these important messages. So I don't know if I'm doing good or bad, or but I feel happy. I feel happy with what I do, and it has cost me a lot to do so many things. So, I mean, cost me energetically, but also the reward of this is the transformation, right? Is when I go to Bocavaldivia, when there's the guys are in the days off, so I go there. There I see a deer, I see a monkey. I feel that I created the space for them to come back. So those are the small things that keep me going. All this motivation, this passion, this purpose, that's what I integrate into the food, and try to share it with much intention to every guest I have the opportunity to cook with. So that's the message.
thank you. Great, thank you.
So it began as 50 hectares, but eventually you started to have like a bigger vision of what this could be, and you started acquiring more land. Like how did I guess what was the moment when you started to think, okay, this is bigger than just these 50 hectares, than just this kind of hospitality project, and moved into more of a conservation project?
This is the source of this is contention, is a reaction that comes from devastation that I see around my surrounding territory, and I see how the depredation of nature has affected so much worldwide, right? We're talking worldwide, and the more I think that this project can get into a bigger scale, that is my personal mission, to contain this devastation, because this is not like a trendy thing, right? Like cooks love trendy things, right? The restaurants love trendy things, but when you plant the forest, it will stay there for over 100 years. So think about it. And I leave a little question for the audience and for you guys. Like, if Bocavaldivia, which is a humble restaurant, you put your feet on the earth. We cook with embers. We only serve 12, 20 people, and we have been able to protect 150 hectares of forest. What can a big restaurant, what can a big hotel chain do, or what can we all do together, and why we're not doing it? That I leave that as a small reflection for everybody. And then and I add that an anecdote to this, because recently I was invited to some event in Canada, and some guy straightforward asked me, like, he owned a bunch of restaurants. He's like, do you have enough to say? Because I didn't have Michelin stars, because the Michelin Guide is not in Ecuador, and I wasn't part of the 50 best list, probably because my restaurant is very isolated. So we're a 50 best discovery restaurant, and I respect that, but I'm not like drooling for that, right? So I said, I do have enough to say, especially one thing: how many hectares do you protect? Conversation over, and we became really good friends, and actually we're working together now in a project. So for me now is about that. It's about, okay, you're a great chef, your dishes are beautiful, your restaurant looks amazing, you're in the 50 bed list, bravo. Now how many hectares are you protecting? That's the question I'm asking. So more and more I just go to the essence of things, and that's how I move in life. And now we have important challenges coming ahead, and of course, there's a lot of talking, right? I also do a lot of talking now, but I have to sustain this in the dish, in my creativity, in the service, in the experience. So it's a compromise. To when you talk, then you need to prove what you're saying, to walk the talk. So I take on the challenge, but this is, yeah, kind of like adding a little bit of more information, and for all of us to understand how this works, and what's my role, and why we have been expanding this to over 150 hectares. And now I'm going to the New York Climate Week to present the project, to bring it up to 2,000 hectares, and then to become a worldwide land bank of edible forests, where you can add different forests from all over the world and make the biggest biodiverse edible forest in the world. So that's kind of the journey at the moment.
So all of these kind of like really fascinating, important people work with you kind of on this project, or at least kind of associated. Like evolutionary biologist Dr. Justin Yeager, there's an environmental defense lawyer, Julio Prieto. Like, do these people just start, once you start talking about these things, do they just kind of come out of the woodwork and, somehow they find their way there, and they're like, I want to be involved? Or what is their association exactly?
This is like, the Ernest Shackleton story. So he put a sign before his expedition. He said, "It's dangerous. We might not come back. Nights of darkness." Blah, blah, blah. And then whoever showed up was the right people who joined him, and he didn't lose any of the team later. So it's sort of like that. When I get to these people, I tell them that, like, this is tough. We have so many challenges. We have so many needs. And lots to do, but this is the reward. This is the purpose in terms of spiritually and energetically and all that. And then I get the right people to join. Now we need to expand the team, so we are also, but we need to afford that. So we need there's a funding issue. there's also a connecting issue, but I do a lot of connection. But now I'm in the funding part, so I can extend my team a little more and get more of Justin, get more Julios, and more people that are, I'm sure, that are there and they have the drive to transform the world positively, but maybe they don't have a container to do it. So we got to meet each other at some point and make this happen in a bigger scale.
So a lot of like the land acquisition and stuff, like technically, how does that even happen? Is it like through grants or what?
Well, good question. It almost cost me my marriage because at least 50 hectares I bought it with my personal efforts, and then I created, and then when I almost lost it, I created a foundation, which is Bocavaldivia Foundation, which is the right vehicle to get funds and to acquire land and to manage this environmental project. But then you have to make a foundation. In Ecuador, it's not like in the US that you get a foundation and you receive a mail 1 week later with your foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Here it takes you a year and a half or 2 years of many challenges. And it's the second that I do. So again, putting my backpack and walking this trail for how to have the right vehicle to do the right things. And now it's better. So through the foundation, we have already acquired around, let's say, 60 more hectares, and we have plenty more to acquire and to protect.
Do you think more restaurants should kind of start to work with these kinds of things? Because I mean, it's there's only so much you can do with the income of a single restaurant. Especially one that only serves, I don't know what you serve a week, but no matter what it is, even if you're full every day, there's only so much land you can buy. So you do have to work with kind of think outside of the box a little bit, I guess. Do you think more restaurants that want to kind of achieve something bigger that just isn't related to their direct business should be thinking this way?
Of course. You know, uh, gastronomy is the continuation of agriculture, and agriculture happened to be the number one responsible for global warming. So that means gastronomy is also accountable for global warming, and it's a must that all leaders, not only for kitchens but for every organization, start an environmental transformation process within their organization. It means building better practices in terms of food waste, right? And then we have the Sustainable Development Goals. It's just a pretty easy guide that we can all follow, the SDGs. But we should all be supporting environmental projects. We should all be containing climate change. Why is no one speaking about climate change? And one time I got someone who told me, why you as a chef, why do you talk about climate change? You're a chef. And I said, stop, please. Like, I am a chef, but I'm a human. I'm also a citizen of the world. Everybody has the right to speak about climate change. You don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to be an expert. You have to be a human that is concerned, that is aware of things. And that's why I invite more chefs, more restaurants to contribute, and to retribute a small part. And it can be done in many ways. That's why we are creative, right? We should be creative for solving the problems of the world as well. So I think every restaurant has the moral responsibility to contribute to the good health of nature.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually the right and the duty. It's not only, I mean, when this person asks you why you're talking about this, if you're a chef, that's part of people understanding what a chef, what a cook is in the end, right? Which is beyond the restaurant, beyond feeding people, or what to feed people, no matter the context, means, right? So it's not only a right to talk about climate change, but actually a duty, as you say, as a human, as a chef, as whoever is using this earth, right? And I'll say when you, I want to highlight something you said, which is you're going to the basics, and the message for people is go closer to nature, connect with nature, understand it, and just be there, right? And but I think connected with that is like who has the wisdom about nature that it's more helpful now, and that seems to be indigenous communities. And you described it in this like beautiful way, wisdom, right, which is different from knowledge. So I think this all makes sense together when this person was asking you about climate change. I think that's what the answer is in that wisdom too. So yeah, that's stuck in my
Absolutely.
mind.
There are 5,000 indigenous communities around the globe, and they are the guardians of more than 80% of the world remaining biodiversity. And they have been resilient, they have been adaptive in the sense of creating food systems and agri-food systems that live in harmony with nature. And they have been doing that for thousands of years. And we do have this concept still that says, well, we need to help the indigenous community. Wrong. They need to help us. We need to ask them for help. And that means we need to integrate them. We need to consider them. And that's how I created the first table, this initiative that I is a mini documentary series. I've already done two, one in Ecuador and one in Toronto in Canada, where we bring in the importance of transmitting the indigenous wisdom not only to the youngers of the indigenous community but also to non-indigenous communities, because they have by example been leading the conservation of our ecosystem for thousands of years, period. And that's how we need to follow their guidance. We need to respect, and we also need to stop making this a folkloric thing. It's about a deep respect. It's about providing the value that they deserve, providing the space, the opportunity also for them to develop economy, to utilize their products without interfaces, But so the cook has a lot of responsibilities outside of the kitchen, and that's how I see gastronomy today. The cooks are too focused in what happens inside, and that's how their vision gets stuck, and they cannot see beyond that, and that's especially considering the indigenous wisdom and all that. I think this is an essential part of our mission as chefs, is to integrate them more and more. And you will see these documentaries I'm building, and I'm gonna do more episodes in different parts of the world. With joy is a message that is shared through gastronomy, with happiness. It's not like an activism that is sad and and resentful. No, it's just a promoting a good relationship with the indigenous people of the world, with good relationship with the flora around us, in a joyful way. So.
When I was there, you said one of the aims of Bocavaldivia is to connect ecosystems that have been cut off from each other. What do you mean by that, and what's the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal is to protect, to restore, to reconnect, to strengthen ecosystems and cultures. These are very important pillars of what we do, and that's how we move. First is protecting, and that's why the acquisition of land is important for us around us. But we also have to focus on policy, and it gets very political at some point. And it maybe it's weird for you guys to interview a chef that is talking about these things, but I think it's time. I think it's time for all leaders to start waking up and start contributing and retributing to with climatic solutions that should come from civil society. Governments are walking in circles. Like we that's why the world is like this right now. So the fact that we point to them, the president here, the mayor there, what are we doing in our fridges? What are we doing in our homes, in our companies? Are we really doing important transformation? So once we stop pointing at the others and point to ourselves, then we can start. And then talking about gastronomy, it's not only about the purpose and contributing, but it also becomes like a sort of like a endorsement stamp for your work, right? It gives you added value. So it's also a return of the investment. It's not just dedicating some funds or some energy or some just because you're a good-hearted. No, it's also something that will bring important things to your life. It will bring, and it happened to me too, and I must say that. So it's all good at the end. It's a 360 degrees of honor to act like this, and it goes beyond the list. And I think we would need many hours of maybe a couple of bottles of wine to be able to talk about all the important things and all the things that are going on in my projects, and also how important is your role too, giving us this space, this platform to express ourselves and hopefully touching the soul of a few.
Yeah.
Where do you see this project in, I don't know, 20 years? What's your hopes for it?
What I envision is the expansion. Sorry, you kind of did
Nick?
you?
Yeah.
Sorry, I kind of lost you a little bit, but you were
No, it's okay.
you were
Just keep
asking me
going.
for
Yeah.
the next 20 years. What I envision is a huge forest. It's the reconciliation with wildlife. It's the preservation of water resources. It's abundance in terms of nutrition. It's beauty. It's shade. It's all the good things. That's how I see it. But we do need to expand it into a proper scale. 150 hectares is a pretty big piece of land, let me tell you. And what happens in 1 hectare is so amazing in terms of biodiversity. What happens in 150 hectares is important, but then still small in the sense that the predation rhythm it goes faster, it goes stronger. I've seen forests of let's say 100 hectares being put down in 2 days, in 48 hours. You know what I mean? So that's how we can relate the scale of the actual project would actually be needed. So in 20 years, I want to see 5,000 hectares of edible forest at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Julie, do you have any other questions?
I mean, yes, but I think the message is clear, and I would like people to keep that message clear, because I think Rodrigo has said very, very important things for people to reflect about and to act upon. So,
All
yeah,
right.
no, I think that's enough to process.
All right. All right,
And we'll
Definitely.
wait for those battle of wines too, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yes, likewise.
All right, man. Let me know when
Thank you so
you
much.
have your dates. Yeah, thank you for everything. Let me know when your time in New York is scheduled, and hopefully we can meet up. You hear me? Hello?
Now we do.
We do.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know what's going on with my internet today, but I was saying just thank you, but let me know when your time in New York is all set up, and hopefully we can hang out. Am I getting cut off? Like, what's going on here?
Sure. Yeah, I heard you. I heard you. I'll write a note with
Okay.
you while in New York, and then hopefully we can have a personal chat together with a nice drink. So thanks for this space, and very honored to share with you guys.
Thanks to you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Until soon.